What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to a very concerning report, which is titled There is No Going Back Inside Europe's Rupture with the United States. So it says here that basically European leaders are tired of having to deal with the US and Donald Trump, and you're tired of having to rely on the US for anything, and autonomy is now the long term goal. I mean, this is this is just so bad for us, to say the least. And I mean, other countries are just sick of us. And now I really feel like we've been taking our allies for granted, you know? I think a lot of Americans think that because the United States has been in a position of we've had power and wealth and success, that that could never change. Well, based on this, that doesn't seem to be the case at all. Things are definitely changing for the United States, and not in a good way. So today, I really want to take a look at this report and try to understand just how bad this is for us. So let's take a look.
We at the Wall Street Journal spent a few months talking to prime ministers, senior officials across Europe, intelligence officials, because we wanted to get inside the candid conversations that are really happening here in Europe. And it's true, on the surface, you still see Mark Rutte flattering the president, calling him daddy even. This kind of, it's called flattery diplomacy. That's to keep Trump engaged in NATO. Under the surface, European governments, especially after Greenland, are starting to think that the U.S. might be evolving here from just an ally that's a bit unpredictable to one that is potentially becoming, on some issues, hostile, even a threat. And
Oh my God. And it's like, you know, one of the most frustrating things is that it's all true. Like, if you think about it, European leaders have every reason to be upset with the United States, and to not want to have to deal with us, especially some of the things he's talking about. They brought up like Greenland. What a disaster that was. Like, what? Man. And a lot of Americans really think like, oh, Trump threatening Greenland, that's old news. Like, that was just a crazy little thing. That doesn't really matter. No, clearly Europeans noticed that and think we're crazy and unreliable, and that's a big thing when you can't trust somebody. It feels like the United States, we've lost a lot of your trust. And like that's something like intangible. That's not like signing a trade agreement, or that it's an emotional thing. Like, you don't want to do business with someone you don't trust. It's not about money or data or whatever you're trading. It's like, if you don't like somebody, you don't like somebody. So that's incredibly difficult to fix, and we've managed to screw that up. Greenland is a great example. And I feel like this is something here in the United States we're just not really aware of how bad it is. Like, we're not really aware of how bad our reputation has gotten. So when you spell it out like this, it's pretty obvious, though.
So they're reassessing their relationship. They're speaking extremely with a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of mistrust in this relationship. And they are re-engineering the world's most powerful military alliance to be less overly dependent on a single country, the United States.
And you
That's it's funny because I know Donald Trump has said like, "Oh, we're tired of Europe having to depend on us for stuff." For one thing, selfishly, it just objectively, it's actually good when people have to rely on you. And it can be good for everybody if you're a reliable trading partner, if you're a reliable ally. It can be a really good position. The United States has been in a very favorable position where a lot of countries have had to depend on us for certain things. That's that's objectively good for us. Now that we've gone and ruined all of everybody's trust in us, everybody is moving away from any sort of reliance on the United States. And once that happened, now that that's happening, like what do we have? Like we're actually so stupid for that. Actually so stupid. Like the US dollar being like a reserve currency that a lot of the world is willing to use. What if people start moving away from that? You know, that's not so far-fetched now that this has started. That's one of the biggest powers that the US has, our ability to print US dollars and spend them. And it is, you can't overstate what a disaster this is. And it's like we've caused this all onto ourselves. Man, yeah, a lot more Americans need to like sit down and actually listen to this and think about how bad this is.
mentioned just before
Joe, you have-
the segment that Trump had casually sort of resurrected the idea of taking Greenland, and it really was Greenland that was the moment, the threshold moment, I think, that created a crisis between the allies that
Sure, because it was confusing for NATO because we're part of NATO. It's one of the first times where Donald Trump, the leader of the United States, like threatened what sounded like serious military, you know, threats. I can't even bring myself to say to say it out loud to because then it will be real. But that's a real thing that happened. Donald Trump suggested that the United States would like invade Greenland. Donald Trump has also made threats towards Canada before, and like this is more than just saying stupid things, which is bad enough. And he's actually threatening violence and death. Like it's outrageous. It's unbelievable. Like Americans should be way more upset. Europeans, our allies, are clearly upset, which you should be. If anybody else was doing this, Americans would be upset. But since we're the ones doing it, it's like we're confused on how to react, you know? Because a lot of Americans don't act like Donald Trump, actually. There's a lot of Americans who do like Donald Trump. He was literally voted president of the United States for the second time. So clearly there's a lot of people who voted for him. But there's a lot of people here that don't identify America with Donald Trump. So whether you are an American who supports him or doesn't, it's like we're struggling with our identity, like, and our tanking reputation. And it's like we don't want to acknowledge all the horrible things that are happening that we're doing. It's like something like that. It's confusing for a lot of Americans. It's like an identity crisis because nobody wants to think that they're the bad guy. But in order for us to have any chance of fixing this, we need to, admit what we're doing wrong. which I think this is like a report from the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. Like, so these are like American journalists who are trying to spread this message inside the US. So I think this is actually really good. It's all horrible to hear, but it's good to be aware of. Americans need to know this.
President Macron, in one of these meetings that we've managed to get access to, said there is no going back. In that meeting where the European leaders all met without phones, they met without a written record, without a recording of the meeting so they could speak frankly, said to each other that they can no longer tolerate this, said to each other that the Belgian Prime Minister said, if this continues, it'll be like we are America's miserable slave. They spoke for 5 hours. They called it a therapy session. And so while that is just one meeting, it represents this threshold moment. And I think what you're seeing is this very clear duopoly, if you like, between the public comments at NATO, where we still see the flattery and we still see the bonhomie, and what's happening in private, where the Europeans have decided that they need to make a plan to be less reliant on the United States.
Oh my God. This is, I'm aware of some of this stuff, as an American even. This is worse than I thought. How is this even worse than a bunch of European leaders? This was a little while ago, it sounds like, at a summit or NATO summit or something like that, maybe a few weeks ago. A bunch of European leaders got together without Donald Trump, without cell phones, just totally private, and just talked about how much they hate the United States. I mean, that's basically what they're saying. Talking about, oh my God. And so that's like their genuine feelings, because it's true. Since Donald Trump is the president of the US, a lot of world leaders have tried to get along with him, have tried to be friendly or at least like cordial, but behind closed doors, they hate him. They don't want to have to deal with him. They don't want to have to deal with the US. And Europeans are this is the conversation that Americans don't know about. Except now we do. But I can't say I'm totally shocked, though. It's just very sad to hear, as an American myself. It's sad to hear for the U.S. It's sad for us.
Drew, that is an extraordinary scene that you all describe. You have European leaders in what they call the space egg, the safe space at the European Council, where they can speak candidly. And you have Macron, as you said, there's no going back. We have to draw a line here with Greenland. And interesting that the president just a couple of days ago is talking again about the United States needing control of Greenland strategically. So, Drew, I guess the question is, there's a lot of talk.
Yeah, Trump has... Greenland was like a really big thing for a while, and since then, Trump has made several comments about Greenland very recently, actually. He has not forgotten about Greenland. A lot of Americans think that's like just gone. There's a lot of coping going on in the US where Americans think, we are exposed to Donald Trump so much. He's our president. We hear him so much, so often, that a lot of Americans have become desensitized to Donald Trump, where we don't even register how crazy he is anymore, because you just hear it all the time. And maybe that's a strategy of his or something. I don't know. But a lot of Americans have an attitude of like, that's Donald Trump. No, he's just saying something crazy again. No, don't worry. He doesn't mean it. It's what a yeah, crazy Trump. So silly. Like it's not serious. Or it's very, but it's a coping thing or something, and it's bad. It's bad because this is very serious, and Europeans are taking this seriously, as you should.
There's a lot of therapy sessions behind the scenes. How is this rupture, as Carney called it, manifesting itself in policy, economic, defense, and otherwise?
Yeah. Well, Europe is spending hundreds of billions of euros, hundreds of billions of dollars to create their own defense technology platforms that are outside America's control. Let me give you an example. Some of European governments, when they talk to each other, their most sensitive conversations right now, as I speak to you, go through Elon Musk's satellites. The weapon systems being used in Ukraine, European weapon systems, they rely on Starlink connections.
Sure.
And governments they're putting their own satellites in space. Europe is.
Yeah, like I get it. There's a lot of American technology companies like Starlink, like American internets, email communications, a lot of American technology that it sounds like Europe is trying to move away from. Ju- you know what this reminds me of? Here in the US, we do not use Chinese technology as much as we can. We try not to because we think they're spying on us, or that's how Europe feels about the United States. You don't trust us. You don't want to rely on us for important things like that. That yeah, a lot of Americans need to understand, like, because that's how we view China, someone we don't trust. That's how you view us.
Putting hundreds of satellites in space specifically so that they can have conversations that don't go through Elon Musk's systems, and so that their weapon systems, for example, aren't reliant on where Elon Musk comes down. And he's been very helpful in Ukraine, but they don't want to build an alliance dependent on one person. They are.
You know what the other sad thing is? I actually agree. I'm an American, and I totally get it. Listening to all this, it makes sense. If someone else was as crazy as the US, you know, we wouldn't want to rely on them. If another country had done what we have done, what Donald Trump has done, behaved how we behave, we wouldn't want anything to do with them. We would be like, oh, no way, they're crazy. We're not buying their jets or their missiles or their satellites or any. We're not doing anything with them. That's how we would feel. It's just that in this situation, it's us. We're the crazy ones.
France has ordered 2.5 million civil servants to stop using Microsoft Office, to stop using Microsoft Teams, and to start using French or European software. Governments from Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, France again, they are creating their own messaging platform so that government officials don't they don't do official business over apps like WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook's Meta. So there's a real de-Americanization, if you can call it, that's happening inside NATO. And this is very unusual because it's still an alliance that is extremely interwoven and, of course, dependent on the United States.
De-Americanization. I've never heard that term, but it actually fits perfectly. It's actually kind of nice to see the Wall Street Journal doing, like, you don't hear a lot of this stuff on mainstream American news. So it's actually, again, this is very depressing, but I'm actually happy that we're talking about this stuff.
One thing's for sure, that none of this has been tested before. And the other thing that's fascinating about Mark Carney's role is, really, Mark Carney would not be Prime Minister if it wasn't for the 51st state comments that President Trump made at the beginning of his second term.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. Donald Trump has made, like, a ton of threats towards Canada and Canada's sovereignty, calling Canada the 51st state of the United States. And that was happening a lot during the Canadian election. And I know Mark Carney had a lot of, like, rebuttals to that whole situation, which helped him get elected as sort of as a response, as an opponent to Donald Trump.
Those comments, I think, to many people in America sounded like they were just throwaway lines or a bit glib, but to the Canadians and to the Carney administration as it was sworn in and reading the intelligence reports, it was incredibly serious, and it changed minds.
Oh, I mean, that right there, tells you so much right there. He's absolutely correct. Like Donald Trump calling Canada the 51st state. A lot of Americans think it's funny, think it's a joke. They're like, whereas the rest of the world, and especially Canadians, take it seriously as a threat. It just shows such a huge disconnect where Americans just don't take this stuff seriously. Like the stuff that Donald Trump, he represents the United States. He represents what we're, and any, our potential, our military, our, any threat he makes has to be taken seriously. And it's like Americans don't realize that everyone around the world is scrutinizing us in a serious way.
So that the Canadians really were trying to advocate with the Europeans since the very, very early days of Carney's prime ministership that we should have a different strategy. We should be less reliant. It's
Yeah, wow. That's another good example. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of examples. Like if you're paying attention, a lot of Americans are not, which is very strange because it's the future of the United States we're talking about. But then again, we did this to ourselves. We elected Donald Trump for a second term, and I don't know. I don't know if even I anticipated how much of a disaster it would be. I thought it would be bad. He quite literally could be destroying the future of the United States. Like somehow it's all worse than I ever imagined. And the only way we're going to overcome it or have any chance of stopping it as Americans is to be aware of it and talk about it and try to fix it. But the first step is acknowledging it and being aware of it. So for that reason, I'm glad I took a look at this. But my God, this is depressing for the U.S. It's not good. But anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on the decline of the U.S., Europe moving away from the U.S., ending any sort of relationship with us or reliance on us. That'd be interesting to hear about, especially if you're European yourself. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.